You're listening to Trailblazers.fm, an interview-styled podcast that delves deep into bold conversations with successful Black entrepreneurs and leaders. Join us weekly to learn actionable strategies, valuable tactics, and innovative tools that you can put to use immediately on your journey to blazing your trail. And now, here's your host, my husband, Stephen A. Hart.
Hello and good morning, Blazer Nation. How are you doing this morning? Today, I am joined by two amazing brothers. My brother from another, Mr. Shawn Dove, is here with me this morning. Shawn, good morning. How you doing, man?
Good morning. I like to say, look, I woke up, Stephen, so the rest is icing on the cake, and just grateful this morning to be with you, and thanks for sharing your platform with me and inviting me back. We kicked off the Wednesday takeovers last week,
That's
and
right.
You decided to invite me back, so I appreciate it. I've been places where they said, don't come back here no more, right?
Listen, I was just telling Shawn offline, man, we roll until the wheels fall off. Shawn, for those of you who do not know Shawn, he is the founder of the Corporation for Black Male Achievement. He is an amazing speaker, an author, of a co-author of I Too Am America. Coming soon. Go ahead and visit dovesource.com to learn more. But most importantly, Shawn is the champion of this platform that we are connecting with you on today. Met Shawn 6 weeks into Trailblazers being a podcast, and I will never forget him sending me a DM in Twitter and saying, hey, if I didn't find you, I was going to have to create this podcast. And he came on the podcast back in May of 2016, and for the better part of the next 2 years remained one of the top 5 episodes of Trailblazers.fm, making it to number 1, right? And
Forgot about that. All right.
and after that came back and left us some amazing leadership nuggets back on episode, was it 180?
180, the masterclass, 7
The
seasons.
masterclass. And so Shawn and I were talking recently. His book is coming up really soon. And I said, Shawn, I want you to do a takeover on Wednesdays. And so just blessed to have you here. I have another Jamaican brother in the room joining us, Mr. Coach Wayne. How you doing?
My brothers, good morning. I was up last night, right? Working with the wife because we're traveling for our anniversary tomorrow. And I had my laptop, moved it from my office here and set up lights, camera, action. This morning, it just failed to connect. So I apologize. I had to switch back to the office. So you can see my green screen behind me. Please forgive me, gentlemen.
No worries.
We were ready to go without you, Wayne. We were like, happens, but we're glad you made it, brother.
Well, you know what green means? Green means let's go. Stephen, my brother, good to see you, and thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. So let me just tell our community, Coach Wayne Dawson is a transformational and strategic mindset coach. He helps men experiencing transitions in their lives, such as careers, relationship, and wellness, to become unstuck and escape crisis. His signature approach focuses on eliminating limiting beliefs, uncovering core values, exploring subconscious levels of identity, and aligning them with a renewed purpose. Wayne, fill in the gaps for me. Tell our Blazer Nation community a little bit more about what you do.
I'm happy to do that. So, they say oftentimes what drives you is the ability to get away from pain, or the need to, or the desire to get pleasure. And in my case, it was a little bit of both. Shawn can tell you that about 15, 17 years ago, we used to meet on a regular basis for lunch at Amy Ruth in Harlem. And we would sit down and we would draw up our vision, our dream. At the time, Shawn was getting ready to launch Proud Papa, his newspaper, magazine, which is going to come back, I'm sure, Shawn.
It never left, but go ahead.
And I had drawn out the idea of, at the time, VIP Transformative Living was called Change Institute. And it really was about having an enterprise where I was able to understand and help Black men in Harlem in particular, and their boys that at that time was just coming out of the crack epidemic era, to use their resourcefulness and the resources around them to move to another level. And so that in my living room today, I can still see the vision board that has gone and evolved to VIP Transformative Living. And what I'm talking about now is working with men. Now, I worked with Black boys for over 17 years. Some of those, all of those have grown up to be grown men. Some of those didn't get the transformation then, so I'm still working with them and others like them as they go through various levels of what we call transition. Some folks call that crisis. I think it doesn't have to be a crisis unless it's mishandled. And so my role and my mission is to help men transform so that they can live a life of fulfillment and significance. I think it is our birthright. So I do that using what I call a strategy, VIP, which represents, in some people's mind, very important persons, but in mine, values, identity, and purpose. I have found over the years that those three significant areas, those principles, are immutable when it comes to moving to the next level, when it comes to fulfilling your purpose, your life. And so my mission fuel is driven by that concept.
I love that, Wayne. Values, identity, and purpose.
Yes. Wayne, good to have you. Good to be on here with my two Jamaican brethren. And I'm half Jamaican, so I would imagine cumulatively we got about 10, 12 jobs amongst each other. I wanted to ask you a question because you made the reference, because I vividly remember almost 20 years ago our gatherings at Amy Ruth in Harlem, and when we would come together masterminding, right? And Stephen's audience really is familiar about the mastermind concept, us writing this stuff, dreams and goals and journals. And that was almost 20 years ago, and here we are, 2021, when you have launched out to manifest VIP as a social entrepreneurial endeavor. Why now, right? Why, and what has happened up until that point that caused you now to dive into the deep end with this vision?
Hey, great question. False expectations appearing real, Shawn. I've wanted to do this, to live that vision like most of us, and we get stuck in what's certain and what appears to be comfortable. So for me, I had my kids growing up. My youngest now is 21, so they're still on the coop. They're all grown men and women, so to speak. And during that period of time, I was helping to develop other people's dreams, and I was a leader in the world of non-for-profit, working for one of the oldest and largest non-for-profits in the United States, running their campus for the activities, the full holistic activities of youth. And then I moved on and got into foster care and pursued my long-lost love, my wife, who we dated in college, the wonderful Dr. Audrey Dawson, and came to Florida, where I switched careers totally and went into the health industry as a manager for a training organization, Fortune 100. And at the time, I was still feeling somewhat like torn between what I needed to do, that calling, that inner burn, that, because, your purpose is sort of an internal divine push. very early that is there, but we tend to refuse to listen and to feel it. And so we go with what is convenient for us oftentimes and what is comfortable and what we think is certain. But during COVID, I realized that there were truly no certainties. I had friends who got sick and lost their families, who were thinking about going to Hawaii and buying that car next year, but it never materialized. And I stopped and I realized that, hey, I'm not getting any younger. The last time I checked the calendar, my kids are growing up. And I thought, hey, this is time to jump. And I didn't know just how well the parachute was, but I knew that I'd spent all those years preparing. Everything that I've done up to now was preparing me for this calling. And Shawn, you oftentimes would say, stop stalling your calling, brother. And that was it.
Jump in, yes.
So it was, the time was right. Plus I have the support of a wonderful, beloved wife who said to me, listen, you have held this family down for all these years. Go out and do you. I got your back.
I know you often say that you just fired corporate America, right? And
Yes, sir.
I want to ask if you can just kind of just take us through the VIP framework, right? So it starts with values, and one of the things that Stephen said as he was introducing you and just talking about just your framework and what you do, he had mentioned belief systems and helping folks break through limiting belief systems. And I know values has something to do with that. So why values? Tell us about values, and then we'll get into identity and purpose. But let's start off with the values.
Absolutely. So values is intrinsic. Values is truly about worth. But here's the thing. Most people spend their entire lives working with values that were deployed by others. Your parents, for example, your religious institution, the government. People set the values for you, and oftentimes you just go with the flow because that makes you part of the insider team. You don't stick out. But values are intrinsic, and values are at the core. So what I help people discover is not their mean values. And let me explain what that means. If I say to most people when I'm doing coaching, what is important? What do you want? What is your value? A lot of people will say money. The truth is money is an end value to a core value. What money is going to purchase for you is more time, power, perhaps. It's different for everybody. Freedom. And so what we want to get at, and I help people channel their thinking so that they can get at it, is what the core value is. See, once you get your core value, your value drives your belief system. Your belief system will drive your behavior. Your behavior will drive your habits, and your habits will drive the results that you have cumulatively in terms of your life.
Time out. Say that one more time.
I love that.
Not only for the audience, I wanted to sip that real slowly. Say that one more time, brother.
Okay. So your values will drive your belief system.
Values.
Your belief system, right, will drive your behaviors. Your behaviors will drive your habits, and your habits will drive your personality, your character, and who you are.
And your destiny.
Some gems right there, Bridget.
Thank you. But it goes with the I identity. And this is, I think, very important because, again, most of the folks that are in a rut, and unfortunately, you know, a lot of men, most of us, we barely want to go to the doctor without our spouses dragging us along. So imagine talking about coaching. We hardly admit to our vulnerabilities and say we need help. So a lot of brothers are walking around, and what a coach does, what I do is I am there to identify and spot your blind spots, you know, and that's what a coach does. I can share with you later the difference between coaching and therapy because I believe in both, but there's a place for one and the other. And so identity is really helping you to, I look at several things. What is your self-ideal? If you had a magic wand and you could wave it and you could get and be who you could be, what exactly would that look like? It could be real or imagined. The mind doesn't know the difference, right? So if your father is your ideal, or if it's a musician or an entertainer, then you look at your self-image. Where are you now? there's a gap between where you are now and where you want to be. And sometimes I help people to unravel the self-ideal because it's not real. It's not truly, it's not real. So I will dispel that myth. If somebody says to me, look, I'm going to be that astronaut because they make money, and I recognize that you don't have the resourcefulness nor resources, we're going to have to readjust that. It's a self-check. All right. And even though it sounds positive, it is a limiting belief. And so I help people discover that as well. And so once we discover the gap, I'm going to work with you to shift your mindset strategically so that you can fill that gap and start doing and taking the steps needed to get to that ideal. And once you live in alignment with your self-ideal, your self-image and your self-ideal is a mesh, your self-esteem rises. The closer that gap is tightened, the higher your self-esteem. We find that. So one of the things that the African-American community, Black folks, have to get back to in terms of moving the needle is to truly be the narrators of who they are, not to have a depiction of self-ideal and self-image by the media and by others, but for us to own that ourselves and tell that narrative so we can move the needle.
So how do we do that? Because as you're describing identity, I'm thinking about the stories that we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
I'm also thinking about cultural identity, right? As Black men in America. And I think of Thomas Burrell's book, Brainwashed, where he says that, you know, America created the most sophisticated marketing system and convincing Black people that we are indeed inferior, right? And so if I'm one of your coaching clients, right, and I show up on your doorstep or on your screen, and I'm like challenged with cultural identity and who I am as a Black man and trying to get out of a rut, how do you begin that shift in identity?
Yeah. So the history books are filled with blanks that we did not complete. And so one of the things that has to be done is for us to talk about education, in which case we have to start working at the level of developing our own curriculum or inserting a curriculum of inclusion where we are a part of it. And we're telling our story, not his story. That's one of it. The second part of it is I work from a position of strength. My wife, who's a clinical psychologist, works with folks, and she oftentimes works with folks who have deficits as far as mental health. So she goes back oftentimes to trauma, which means she visits yesterday and spends some time there to clear that up moving forward. I visit yesterday in terms of your past only for the purpose of being informed. But I live in the now. The now is the only thing we have in terms of training. So when I take people to the now, what I want to do is give them an opportunity to share in their mind positive possibilities. So I'm going to look at any record of success that you have had or people around you have had, and you can own that, and that's reference. See, success leaves footprints. And if you simply follow what has happened before for someone who's been successful, if you know that story, you have no alternative but to also get success. So it begins with changing that narrative, owning the space where we start controlling our mindset.
And Stephen, you jump in anytime you want, or you know.
Yeah. I mean, that's Wayne is talking to exactly why I created Trailblazers, right? You know, it's to, because I 100% agree. The mainstream media is out here, and they're not doing us any favors. They're not showing representation of Black success beyond the limitations of athletics, music, and you're not seeing in mainstream media success, you know, black success in corporate and leadership, in entrepreneurship. And I think that's so important. I'm looking around, you know, at people I went to school with, people that live in my community, people on my screen right now, right? You brothers, we are all achieving success in whatever our passion is, right, in life, and our skill and our talent and the things that we know and love. But the mainstream media isn't showcasing that. Yeah. Wayne, as you said that, I do think, though, I live in a pocket of the DMV where there is Black success all around me. So it's easy for me to look next door, look to the left and right at other people in my daycare, parents in our community, and say, hey, that's inspiration. I can network with this person, this brother, this sister. But I know all too often there are brothers and sisters that live in communities where they don't have representation necessarily of someone doing, succeeding to the left and right. What do you say to those groups of people, right? Or people working with folks like that to try and shift that narrative?
Yeah, that's a very poignant observation. When it comes to folks who return to jail, what the research has shown is that if you release them to the same communities from which they left, the probability for them to go back to jail with that familiar environment is much greater than if they moved out and went somewhere else. In other words, if somebody lives in New York and was peddling on the streets, and when they got released, they went to live, say, in Arizona, in a different environment, chances are they stand a better opportunity for success or not returning. So the first level of change typically is your environment. And environment is larger than just your neighbors. It's also what you watch on on social media, on television. It's that environment in terms of books. Now, I have many mentors. Some are official mentors. My peer brother, Shawn, is one of my peer mentors. I have 5 coaches that I enroll. 4 are paid right now, and 1 just enjoys coaching me, and I enjoy him. Point I'm making is there's no shortage, really, if you're going to be resourceful. This is why I talked about resourcefulness. And guess what? If you look around me, Stephen, I have nothing but mentors in the way of books. So your book, in terms of people that have left a blazing path, a trailblazer, are available to you. And what we have to do as a coach is guide people with those kind of resourcefulness that they have, and let them get it. So it's not a lack of resources. It's resourcefulness that's stopping us.
Wayne, that's powerful. And I just want to let you know, did you say you have 4 paid coaches?
I have 4 paid coaches right now.
And if there's room for a 5th, I'm going to raise my hand. I'm hoping I can send you a contract as a paid peer coach, right? So you took us through and touched on values. And I know we just hydroplaning in the time that we have. And this is like really
Shawn, real quick, Ralston here over on LinkedIn had a question for you to put some more color on shifting your mindset strategically.
Okay, great. Right. Thanks, Ralston, for that. So, yeah, you see that question, Wayne?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So shifting your mindset strategically is allowing people to move away from limiting beliefs. And what I do when I meet with folks is there's something called what I call the Paul syndrome. That is, people typically have 3 areas that creates limiting beliefs. 1 is they don't think it's possible. Whatever the outcome is, they don't think it's possible. 2 is they don't think they have the ability. And here's the big one, and one that really affects the Black man more than anybody else. They don't think they're deserving of it. They don't think they're worthy. So it's possibility, ability, and worthiness. And so what I help brothers to do is to start looking at the patterns that have created these limiting possibilities, these barriers, these things that have stopped them from being where they need to be, where they ought to be. And listen, fulfillment and significance is our birthright. We're not asking permission, we're taking it. And so what I'm saying to brothers is that, and sisters and families, because I'm all about the family. Family is the first and largest institution that we have ever had as a culture, and we need to get back there. We will never survive until we can bring the family together. But anyway, Ralston, great question. And so that's what I do when it comes to strategic thinking. helping people to remove and dispel those myths and those limiting beliefs, and then replace them with positive possibilities. You know, one of the approaches that I use is the power of questions. Tony Robbins says, and I paraphrase, that the questions that you ask are directly proportionate to the quality of life that you will lead. So we ask ourselves, firstly, questions, and then we ask the outside world. If we ask ourselves questions that does not give us opportunities, and by the way, when I talk about options, if you give yourself only 2 options, that's a dilemma. You have to give yourself at least 3 for it to be powerful. So, you know, we help people to understand that so that they can move forward to the next level. That's part of strategic thinking.
And I like the idea around the power of questions, right? And as we talk about purpose, right? We go from values to identity to purpose. If someone's listening and watching now, and they're seeking to clarify their purpose, and you know, Stephen does this with his brand in demand course. What are some of the questions that I could be asking myself to clarify and hone in on my purpose?
Well, what gives you that big O, that psychological O, that psychological orgasm? That what drives you? What are you doing that comes to you naturally and easily? What are other people saying, man, you make that look so easy? What gets you up in the morning and keeps you up at night? So you see, purpose is a divine assignment. Typically, we think we choose our purpose, but our purpose chooses us. And so once we align ourselves and move out of our way, the purpose is waiting for you to hit you in the head.
Well, and you talked about running from purpose, right? You know, Les Brown used to talk about, is this your dream? And, you know, and you people running from the dream. No, that ain't my dream. And he says, but it has your name on it, right? And you mentioned earlier from 17 years ago to now making the leap to launch VIP Transformative Living. And you talked about false evidence appearing real, right? And fear prevented you, it was one of the factors. And I want to be a VIP, and I'm scared. Maybe I don't feel I'm worthy. Tell me more, you know, to overcome that. You know, what do I do to overcome that fear?
Yeah. So fear truly helps us to discover the level of courage that we have on the other side. I've never seen anybody scale a smooth mountain. You must have furrows and obstacles in the way for you to be able to climb that, right? And so it's important to invite it because it helps you to build muscles. I like to work out, and if I go in the gym and I stay steady every day and don't increase my intensity or my level of resistance, I never can improve. I'm just going to stay there. In fact, I may find periods that I retard. And so invite fear, because with fear, it's a lesson. One of the things that one of the prepositions that I have with the people that I work with is never cast out what you call failure. It's only feedback. There are no failures unless you fall on your back and you give up. Everything else is feedback. So invite that and understand that every lesson that you have is a life lesson. It's helping you to develop. Okay, so you didn't go through that way, then you know which way not to go, and you have one door closed. So you have closed that option. You have opened up and allowed yourself to find a least or less route of resistance, because that one doesn't work. So do not fear it, because listen, I have found, and they call it the law of attraction, I have found that whenever you are on your path and you're in alignment, the people, places, things, and persons that you need fall in place for you, even if you're not looking for it.
What you're seeking is also seeking you.
What you're seeking is also seeking you.
Listen, Bridget, I hear you. You know, and I can see with confidence, right? I'm often pushing myself outside the box of comfort.
Yeah.
Towards, you know, what is unknown, which oftentimes you have to navigate through a lot of failure. But I think Shawn and I were talking about this a couple days ago. Yeah, you embrace it, but you ain't looking forward to it. You're not looking forward to the failure. And you know, what I often say, you know, being comfortable being bad until it gets good.
Yeah.
And I think I think the three of us are much more entrepreneurial and wired in that way to say, hey, let's go get it. But there's a lot of people probably watching this right now that won't even take the first step, knowing that or thinking that there's sure failure on the other side of that first step.
Well, Stephen, I'm going to invite folks to send me their email, because I have in another couple of weeks a online course on helping people to make the career shift or to make the alignment if it's not a shift. So by helping them to do the mind shift, to firstly decide if it's the right time for them, it's the right place for them. And if in fact it's not, to how to encourage themselves up and start preparing themselves for that shift. If nothing else, what will happen is they'll at least get the recognition that they need at the job that they have. And, you know, I see job, J-O-B, as just over broke. It just keeps you where you ought to be, right? And so it's that comfortability that we like. And so you may not have the entrepreneurial spirit, because at the end of the day, let's face it, if everybody was a boss, we'd have nobody to work with us. So I think the idea behind fear is to recognize that it's temporary. And again, it's about the use of language. No matter where you have been in the past, you're somewhere else today, which means it's all temporary and you have to start living in the now. Fear is about an expectation for the future. People who fear live in the future, not the now, because the future is about what the expectations are in your mind, and it hasn't happened yet. So if you're living in the now, you can do what you need to do here and now to prevent the future. However, whatever you focus on grows. So if you spend your time in the cusp of fear, chances are you're going to realize and materialize those things that made you fearful.
Wayne, let me pull that thread a little bit more, right? Because we're talking about, we are all going through the portal that is the pandemic. Shift, change. You know, a couple decades ago, we were working together with Harlem Men Stand Up in Harlem and bringing men together to support each other and empowerment. Shout out to our partner, Melvin Alston, with that. And I know that you are working on your own book, When the Shift Hits the Man, right?
Yes, sir.
You know, I like that word, when the shift hits the man. And there are so many folks, men and women, that are dealing with transition and shift now, right? But specifically around Black men and the shift hitting the fan or the man. Talk to us how do we deal with that?
Okay, so transition is what I call change. The only thing, Aurelius, I think it was, who said the only thing that's permanent is change, right? And so shifting is what we have to get accustomed to and comfortable with and adjust it. And if you look at Abraham Maslow, who talks about the needs pyramid, the first two tiers is where we find ourselves as Black men. The first two tiers are the basic survival tiers. One for providing food, shelter, and clothing. And the second tier is about security and safety. So we find ourselves there. And then the higher tiers are where we talk about significance and then contribution. Most of us spend our time in the first two tiers. It's about survival. And so we have to get out of that responsive, reactionary mode and get to the next level. And how we do that? Well, all of it is not our fault. After 400 years here, where we have been trained to be disempowered, impotent, you know, we had our slave masters and those in white America who believed in racism. We had them decide for us when to eat, when to walk, when to talk, how to eat, when to walk. So we were disempowered as a people. And so one of the things that we had, and I recognize this, and so I mentioned this because it has to be taken into consideration in the book. Men typically, a mark of a man typically is how he leads. And leadership happens in the home in terms of a family. Now, let's not get twisted. I'm not saying the woman doesn't get involved, because understanding the roles, you understand that the African culture, not the one that we have been made to believe, is of such that for you to have a king, you must firstly go through the queen mother. So there's no kingship without queendom. So men who want to be king has to be, as it were, resurrected by the female. And we know the story of Jesus, right? When Jesus was resurrected, who was it that went in the cave and put Jesus together, right? So we understand the woman has to play a very integral part. So until we start understanding the relationship between the man and the woman in the family and start giving her credence and moving forward, we can't be kings again. And that's important for women to understand too, because I hear women say all the time, there are no good black men. Women, we need our women to believe in us and to give us an opportunity to excel. And so there's work to be done on both sides. So this book is a guide for men to understand that as fathers, we are leaders. And if you can lead that institution, then you can move outside and talk about the workplace, the society, entrepreneurism, and everything else. But without that, you can't win. That's where you learn it. And so this book is a guide to help men understand that even after a separation and a divorce, which I've gone through.
Please tell that story.
Oh, okay.
Tell this story, because it's real-time example, real life example.
Okay. So we talk about midlife crisis. Close to my 40s, I had an affair and wound up having my last son, Jared, who is now past 21. And at the time we were buying our home in Queens, the family, and my ex also declared to me at that time that she was gay. So there was no reconciliation. It was over.
Wow.
So now I had my ex and I had a new mother involved with my youngest child. And I spent over a year in therapy, not only because I thought I was responsible for her being gay, but because I thought that there was something wrong with the way I was processing my life as a man. And so I had to step back and take a good look and have somebody look at my blind spot. A year in therapy reveals so much. And I'm one of those Jamaican, and Stephen, you can identify, we come out of that machismo. We all men, we walk in the rain without an umbrella and we never cough. So I had to sit back and realize it's not being a wussy to ask for help and to sit down with a third party and have them look at you from the inside. And it can be very revealing and painful, but we got to do it. Women do it all the time. They talk to each other, about feelings. It's one of the things that we have gone to, and this is unfortunate, is we talk about two polarities, masculine toxicity or effeminate men. There's something in between. And I think today, what men have to do is learn that there's a bridge between where you can fall in the middle. You can still be masculine and be a man and yet have emotional intelligence, the nurturing aspect, which is considered the feminine part, right? So what I had to do is I had to learn how to make friends with all the female that were part of my family and my children's lives, including my new wife. So every opportunity we have to celebrate the kids, every graduation in the last probably 10 years, high school, college, post-grad, I have had Judy, my Jared's mom, Josette, my ex, my other three kids' mom, and my current wife, Audrey, sitting at the table, sharing and even planning to visit each other with the kids as needed. Because at the end of the day, you have to move beyond that stuff. So men who talk about the baby mama drama, I help men to understand that there's a way to negotiate and to work through. Again, it's not about resources, because there were times when holding down 3 homes, as it were, I could not afford some of the payments that I needed to. So you know what I did? I would go over to the home in Queens and mow the lawn, take the car to the garage, change the oil, wash the car, do the things that would take away the expenses. So I had to show up. I always had an extra apartment room so that when my kids came to see me as a single man, they had somewhere to stay over all these years. And so I, every summer I would fight to get the kids because I just wanted them to be with me. People who know me know that I don't show up without my kids. And so that was, for me, a big thing. But to understand, and not only that, my ex has remarried, and her wife, they live in Atlanta. She has had me on her show. She's a psychologist too, on more than one occasions. So I had to learn to negotiate and work with the other spouses, including Judy's boo right now. They called me for my birthday 2 days ago. Judy and her boo, they were driving into Texas and they called me to wish me happy birthday. And how is that possible? That's possible because it's beyond the ego. When you have a family, it's about the we go, right? It's all of you raised in a family. And that's part of the African culture and tradition. And we have to get back to that. The patriarchal idea that man rules and you thump your chest and you say what you got to say. Sometimes you got to back down and make it work. Whatever you got to do.
That's good. That's good.
So many gems baked in that right there, man. First off, Wayne, black don't crack. I hear you tell me you went through that in your 40s and now your son is 20 something. How old are you, Wayne?
2 days ago on the 16th, I was 59, brother.
Man, you better stop lying on this line.
Yeah.
You're looking
great. Workout videos. He puts the work in.
I'm
a vegan. I do some workout and I have a subscription to Miss Claro.
Go ahead, Stephen. I knew you were going to ask a question or make a point.
No. That's kind of what, there's just so much there that you shared. And I appreciate you kind of bringing to light. Last week with Greg Corbin, I was sharing my own experiences going through just what you talked about, with us as men not being receptive to therapy. And it took me getting into January of last year to my wife saying, hey, you gonna go talk to a therapist, right? And right now, I don't go 2 weeks without being able to talk to my person, right? And be able to work some things through. And I see Tyrone in the comments here, touching on, just turning 40, understanding this midlife transition. I can't stress enough how important it is for us as Black men, and I think for our sisters as well, to be able to have someone, a neutral voice that we can discuss what's happening and help us to organize our thoughts and work through, because it's not the image of what you see on TV where you're laying on the couch and this person is dictating, right? At least for me, therapy can show up in a number of different ways from week to week. It can be the conversation where I'm just screaming, and voicing all the frustrations I have. It can be another day where we're just talking through what resources, what tools I can put to use to navigate a here and now issue. So it shows up differently, right? But at the end of the day, we show up to a doctor for a routine checkup and ain't nothing wrong. And a therapist is there to have a routine, point of discussion that not going to necessarily fight back at you. Like, not to say my wife fights back at me, but we can have a discussion and she's going to have an opinion. I can talk to Shawn, he's going to have an opinion, right? And a tilt towards something, based on our relationship. And my therapist is just concerned with me and my well-being. And I can't stress enough the importance of that.
Thank you, Stephen, for and what I love about these conversations is the vulnerability, right? And they said vulnerability is the new sexy. And Wayne, you've heard me say that, quite often what ails us, particularly as Black men, is not necessarily a midlife crisis. It is a midwife crisis, right? That we have something in us that we are looking and seeking to birth, to bring into the world, and all the pushing and doing and striving has not brought it forth. We feel like we're running out of time, and sometimes we got breach dreams inside of us and goals, and we got to get vulnerable and ask for help and go to somebody and say, I got something inside of me and I need your help to pull it out, right? And this whole notion of vulnerability, and in your work and in your coaching, how do you help us brothers get more vulnerable so that we can grow?
Yeah.
More vulnerable, that we can just, actualize our authentic selves.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that is important is that we recognize that we all are able and we are capable and we are worthy. And so a lot of the work goes back to brothers who have been injured, and a lot of us deal with inner child trauma, man. This is where the therapy comes in. Inner child trauma is, of course, where at a young age we got injured in terms of our emotions and our psychodynamics are thrown off. Maybe an absent father or an abusive situation at home, or this feeling of absenteeism. So one of the things that we have to do is to admit it. And here's a big one. We have to learn, once we own that, to forgive that and let it go. If we had a deadbeat dad, we have to admit that he was where he was with what he had at the time. So we have to move forward and forgive that so that we can be free. If we hold that as hostage and hold our fathers as for ransom, the only person who suffers in the end will be us. So we have to allow ourselves to get to that place, feel the hurt as it were, but get in the now. Again, when we spend a lot of time in the past, we expose that feeling of fragility and vulnerability. When we are able to understand that we are totally 150% responsible for our outcome and not the weather and not the man and not whatever, if we understand that I understand that we're working against some opposition. But at the end of the day, you can have two brothers coming out of the same home, and one spends his life in jail and the other hires people who run companies.
Yeah.
So what it is, it's about the way that you control who's driving the bus. And so for vulnerability, I get brothers to understand, stop being a victim of circumstances and start owning your outcome. And allow us to move forward. We have to be, as you said all the time, there's nobody coming over the hill to rescue us. We are the cavalry we've been waiting for.
Yeah, the curators of the change. We're seeking to see, and I think that speaks to what you were saying earlier. Is about, like, resources are often not the problem. It's our resourcefulness.
Yeah.
And I wanted just to you talked about the shift hitting the man.
Yes, sir.
I want to talk a little bit now about the shift hitting the brand. And I bring that up because, on the screen here, we have one of the baddest brand strategists on the planet, in the name of Stephen A. Hart. Wayne, I know that you are launching your own online course. And I know that you were trying to get to Stephen a while ago, and so I'm kind of like brokering this connection here. Right? That's what I love. I love making connections like this, right? And so you just made a courageous leap and launching a VIP Transformative Living, right? And while you have Stephen's attention and building your brand, what branding question do you have Stephen you have for Stephen that in the next few minutes that, and it's prices. So you're getting something right here for free, right? And so as you're building your business, what branding question or challenge that you want to put to Stephen for VIP Transformative Living?
Yeah. So let me thank you so much. So let me preface to say that I recognize that branding, we've always been branding, except that we never formalize it. Branding is how you show up, it's identity, right? Yeah. And so for the individual, it's the clothes you want to wear, how you speak, how you walk, how you deport yourself. For the company, it's that seal, that emblem. In fact, there are some families that have their own emblem, so branding can be beyond the business. Yeah. I have the colors gold and black. Black because it represents who I am, what I represent as a people, and gold because that's what it's about for me. But Stephen, so I have a wonderful sense of content, and they talk a lot about platforms, and so I could spend the whole day just trying to get stuff out, juggling through platforms. For me, what's most important is to get the message, because I have a message, to the right audience, the audience that will be capable and willing and are ready. How do you guide folks in terms of branding to locate and fall in that right space?
Yeah, great question. So you touched on something. You touched on your visual identity when you alluded to your colors just now, which is part of your brand identity. But the bigger part of your brand that you have shared in this morning's conversation is your message, right? And I think the two pair well together when we're talking about framing our brand. But before we even get to framing our brand, we have to get clear on who it is that we're looking to serve, right? So as you touched on earlier in our conversation, who is the person that you're trying to serve, and what's actually keeping them up at night? What's challenging them?
Yeah.
So let me ask you, who is your audience? Who is it that you're trying to ultimately serve with?
So ultimately, even though I cover men, ultimately my audience are Black men who are feeling stuck as they go through major transitions. And so for them, I define that as men who are dealing with crisis, as in midlife, which is an identifiable period. So you're looking at men, say between 36 and 45, ideally. Of course, we can talk about folks outside of that margin. But that's the group that I think, are beginning to move out of the first two tiers and say to themselves, off the needs pyramid, and say to themselves, I am not enough. I want more. This job sucks. My wife looks like my roommate. My kids are next door, but they're texting me. I can't even communicate with them. So they, that's the group that needs to get to the next level, but don't know how.
Right. So I think you already nailed look at our comments this morning. I think you've already nailed your messaging, and you know exactly who it is you're speaking to. I think you just need to cycle more of it where that audience shows up. Right. So if you're speaking to the professional, like this morning, we're streaming on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. The majority of our comments are coming in from LinkedIn via live stream, and that's universal. Live stream tends to do very well over LinkedIn. So are you speaking to a 36 to 45, mid 40s, we're working men, right? A lot of people dismiss LinkedIn, but there are a lot of brothers right now in this thread connecting to your message. So don't dismiss. While a lot of people gravitate to IG, and rightfully so, because there's a large audience on the gram that would also need to hear this very same message that you're sharing, I think you need to focus in on a cadence within these platforms where that audience is showing up day in and day out. and keep sharing that. And then your call to action is very important. So I'm gonna tee you up because you talked about, in a couple of weeks, I feel like you said you had a webinar or something that you're doing.
Yeah.
Now this is the wrap, right? Like,
Yes, sir.
have the content, but you have to tell them what to do next.
Yes.
So I'm gonna tee us up because we're coming into the close here. I'm gonna tee us up and allow you to share exactly how we can stay connected to you and what that next step is for us to take.
Yeah, thank you. So I would invite folks to send me an email, which is Wayne Dawson. The name spelling is right there. Wayne Dawson at VIP Transformative Living.com, or you can call me at 954-300-2004 and just say, hey, brother, keep me on the mailing list. If you go on my website, www.viptransformativeliving.com, you will see all of my handles that I'm on. You can follow me on any of those, but certainly just subscribe by leaving your name on the website. Not only will you get information when the trainings are coming up, and the first one coming up in a couple of weeks, like I shared, I got to go to Washington and enjoy my wife and our anniversary in a couple of days, actually. And when I get back, I'll be sending information out. I'll also be offering related free ebooks to folks who register for that. It's a 6-week course, which means I'll spend approximately an hour. And I say approximately because if there are people on the course that needs a little bit more time to work through some of the exercises, and it's work, meaning I'm going to share with you and break down a lot of what needs to be done. But I'm going to expect folks to have an accountability partner, and would like them to introduce me to that partner so we know it's real. And there will be action steps. So at the end of 6 weeks, the needle will be moved. You'd either be pretty sure that this is the job for you or where you want to be at. And you must, during that 6 week, take massive action. And I'm here to help you with that.
I love that.
Mm.
Brother Shawn, before we hop off,
yes.
I also want to invite you to do the same and tell us a little bit about how we can get connected and pre-purchase I Too Am America.
Thank you, brother. So this dream come true. I've co-authored a book with my brother, Nick Childs, I Too Am America, on loving and leading Black men and boys. You can pre-order the book at dovesoars.com. We are having, Stephen, on August 28th, a book blessing and celebration for the launch of the book. You can register at the website. You can find me on LinkedIn, Shawn Dove, on Instagram, Shawn_Dove, and of course on Twitter, Dove Soars, right? And so this is just part of my reinvention and connecting to a purpose and a passion that I've kind of been dabbling in and kind of splashing in the shallow end and going deeper with. And that's with my writing, that's with my speaking, and that's with my publishing. And Wayne is part of the next project that we are working. Wayne and 4-5 other brothers, we are creating something called the Graduation Gift, a postgraduate guide to purposeful living. So more coming with that. And I just want to say the importance of surrounding yourself with like-minded, passionate, purpose-filled people, that what you can't do alone, you can do together. And both of you are examples personally to me in my life, and being able to help and manifest and partner things. And so excited about that. And also wanted to let listeners know, with Wayne and VIP Transformative Living, almost 20 years ago, we were over some fish and grits. I know Wayne is not eating like that anymore, but talking about this dream. And so you may be listening, and you may have had something that you've been thinking about, keeping you up at night, and thinking time is running out. hold on to that dream and find ways to be resourceful, because here we are 17 years later, and VIP Living, Transformative Living has been launched.
Listen, brothers, I can't thank you both enough for this time. We are at our I'm gonna respect our community hopping into their work day. But thank you both so much. I invite our community to hop on over to their respective sites. I've dropped links in the live stream, and want to encourage you to hit them up on LinkedIn, on Twitter today, and let them know how much you appreciate this conversation. And the videos, this video archives over on YouTube and on LinkedIn. So make sure to share that with your communities today. So much wisdom dropped today, Wayne. Appreciate you. Listen, I am going to take a break next week, and I'm coming back with the fire in September for Trailblazers. So stay tuned, but enjoy the rest of this week and the rest of August, and God bless you guys. I will see you again in a couple weeks. Cheers.
Lesson. Thank you all.
Love you, brother. Happy birthday, Wayne, and happy anniversary, man. Big week.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you so.
Thanks for spending time with us today. If we aren't yet connected, let's keep the conversation going on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. Now, we grow when you subscribe, share, and invite others to check us out. We believe that others who consume these stories will be moved to make significant changes that have generational impact for many others, both now and well into the future. Blaze Nation, go